All right, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely reshape how you view one of the most, if not the most, misunderstood ancient texts in human history. When you hear the word Kama Sutra, modern society has basically conditioned us to think of it through this incredibly narrow, purely physical lens, right? But today, we're actually opening the very first chapter of Maharishi Vatsyayana's masterpiece to look at what the text really says. And honestly, prepare to be surprised. Because what we're looking at here is definitely not some simple physical guide. It's actually a deeply profound, meticulously structured philosophy of life. The text opens with a scene that's honestly almost cinematic, and it's deeply spiritual. Just imagine this ancient sage sitting down, not to write some manual of superficial pleasures, but to really deeply analyze the complexities of the human mind and society. The opening verse sets the entire foundation. Salutations to Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Right out of the gate, Vatsyayana establishes this heavy intellectual weight. He doesn't start with bodies at all, he starts with the foundational pillars of human existence. So, here's what we're covering in today's explainer. First, a philosophical start. Second, the tree of life. Third, ancient philosophy versus modern psychology. Fourth, balancing life's stages. And finally, not lust, but an art. All right, starting with section 1. Kama Sutra. A philosophical start. So the crucial point you have to understand here is that while modern pop culture has totally isolated the physical aspects of the Kama Sutra, the original text actually opens up as a holistic, all-encompassing philosophy. Vatsyayana is essentially acting as an astute psychologist here. He's examining how a human being can achieve absolute completeness in the worldly realm. It's this fascinating exploration of how we function, what really drives us, and how we can find absolute harmony in our day-to-day existence without denying a single part of our humanity. Moving on to Section 2, Trivarga, the Tree of Life. Now, in ancient Indian philosophy, there are 4 main goals of human life: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, which is liberation. But since the Kama Sutra is a manual for worldly life, it focuses on the first 3, known as the Trivarga. Literally translated, that means the group of 3. It's the confluence of Dharma, representing morals, Artha, representing resources, and Kama, representing desire. And here's where Vatsyayana makes a really radical claim, both for his time and ours. He absolutely refuses to elevate one pillar above the others. He insists that their unity, their perfect balance, is the ultimate goal. To really wrap our heads around this balance, the text gives us this absolutely beautiful, vivid metaphor of a tree. So, think of your life as this magnificent tree. Dharma acts as the roots. And we're not just talking about religious rituals here. It's your cosmic and moral law. It's that inner voice of right and wrong, the moral anchor keeping you grounded so you don't just blow over in a storm. Then you have the trunk and branches. That's Artha. This is practical reality. It's your wealth, your education, your career, your resources. Vatsyayana was a total realist. He knew that without resources, art and love simply can't thrive. And finally, we have the flowers and the fruit. That is Kama. It's not just physical attraction. It's the actual pulse of life. It's the joy of listening to beautiful music, the aesthetic appreciation of art, and the deep emotional and physical connection between 2 souls. Without the flowers and fruit, the tree is, well, just bare wood. Let's dive into Section 3, Ancient Philosophy, Modern Psychology. Okay, this is where it gets wild, because Vatsyayana was light years ahead of his time. The parallels here to modern psychology are absolutely stunning. If we map out his ancient framework, which, remember, is thousands of years old, to modern behavioral science, the connections are totally seamless. Dharma, our roots, aligns perfectly with Sigmund Freud's concept of the superego, our moral conscience that lifts us above base animal instincts into responsible humanity. Artha, the trunk and branches, maps right onto Abraham Maslow's safety needs and Freud's ego, the reality principle that teaches us how to practically survive in the world. And Kama, the flowers and fruit, that is essentially Freud's id, or eros, the fundamental life drive, the raw energy of creation, desire, and love. I mean, Vatsyayana basically mapped out the human psyche centuries before modern psychology was even a thing. Which brings us to Section 4, Balancing Life Stages. So, how do we actually live with these powerful forces inside us without completely destroying ourselves? Well, Vatsyayana is highly aware of the dangers of imbalance. Just imagine a person who only pursues Dharma. They become this rigid ascetic, totally cut off from the joy and juice of life, ignoring their practical societal duties. Now imagine someone who only chases Artha, just wealth and resources. They become a greedy machine, someone whose heart has completely dried up. And if someone blindly follows only Kama,
pure lust and desire. They end up destroying their health, their wealth, and their reputation. So the true ideal here is a perfectly balanced harmony where all three of these forces actively feed and support each other.
And this brings us to a foundational rule in the text, one that carries immense philosophical weight. Ate sarvatra varjayet. Excess is forbidden everywhere. Sounding exactly like a highly skilled modern therapist, Vatsyayana is cautioning us against the perils of obsession. Any single pillar, if taken to its absolute extreme at the expense of the others, literally leads to psychological and physical ruin.
To help us actually achieve this balance, the text provides a chronological blueprint for an entire human lifespan. So in childhood, the focus is all about laying the foundation for Dharma and Artha through education and knowledge. Then, in youth, your energy shifts to actively pursuing Artha, building a career, accumulating wealth, and experiencing Kama, which means entering household life and finding love. Finally, in old age, having lived a full, rich life, your focus transitions smoothly back toward Dharma and ultimate liberation, or moksha. But keep in mind, even within this grand timeline, Vatsyayana points out that a microbalance of all three forces still has to exist every single day.
And finally, Section 5, not lust, but an art. This first chapter of the Kama Sutra makes a bold, incredibly liberating declaration. The suppression of desire causes psychological neurosis. Just think about how incredibly modern that sounds. Vatsyayana understood that pushing down our natural instincts just creates deep knots in our psyche. The text teaches that there is absolutely no shame in nature's gifts. The secret to a fulfilling life isn't violently suppressing our desires, and it's not about blindly indulging them either. The real secret, it's to refine them.
So, how exactly do we refine desire? The text lays out this beautiful step-by-step process. First, you accept the natural gift of desire, or Kama, completely without guilt. Second, you secure it in a safe, comfortable, and beautiful environment, and that's where Artha, your resources, comes into play. Third, and honestly most importantly, you envelop that desire in complete mutual respect, consent, and morality. This is the powerful anchor of Dharma. When you follow these steps, the outcome is breathtaking. When a couple comes together with full respect and security, the act is no longer just some basic animal instinct. It transforms. It elevates into a profound spiritual connection. It actually becomes an art form, a meditation, and ultimately a prayer. And that is the true holistic life philosophy of Maharishi Vatsyayana. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to really reflect on. When you look at the balance of your own tree of life, your morals, your resources, your desires, are you simply suppressing your desires out of fear or shame, or are you doing the necessary, beautiful work to refine them? Take a moment to really think about your own personal balance of Dharma, Artha, and Kama. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep refining.